Season 2 of Dragonflight is coming to its end, and I have reached all goals I set myself this season. I haven't really tried anything but Blood Death Knight this season, and I think now's the best time to try something else. I decided to give Vengeance Demon Hunter a try. It happens to be a spec that never really appealed to me. I casually waited as a Havoc Demon Hunter doing Battle of Desert Law and got AOTC done, tanked a few very low keys up to +10 the same season for gearing purposes, but then somehow never bothered touching that class again. This season, however, I want to pack my DH up all the way to +20, getting all 8 portals and getting Keystone Hero in the process. Getting to +20s this late in the season isn't really all that impressive, especially when you have another tank already sitting at 3000 score. I did however choose one of the worst feats to do this. It took me a total of 9 days to complete this challenge, and 7 out of those days happened to take place in the Fortified Bullswing week, upping the difficulty of this challenge by a lot. But with that out of the way, let's look at what we're working with. I'll spare you having to watch me level my character up to 70 as well as the gearing process. I simply bought greens from the auction house, did some time walking dungeons as well as some open world content, and ended up making it up all the way to 397 item level plus my foresight. In this video we'll go through the first 10 keys I play leading up to our first vault. Now 10 keys is a lot of footage, and I don't want you to sit through hours of low keys. Instead we're going to speed through them, pointing out all the more interesting moments. Now for our first key we find ourselves in an Eltharian's level 7. Unfortunately, we lose the mage to aggro in the first pull of the dungeon, so yeah, I crossed the first step of the series. We pick up the mage and one-shot the first boss without any deaths. We lose the mage one more time to an avalanche on our way to Ularok, pick him up again, defeat Ularok, lose the mage one more time to aggro, and kill Araxes with no problems. Facing Darkrule, our mage friend manages to die to the spikes, gets picked up by the log, then doesn't even try dodging the magma waves, and dies again. This causes the next set of spikes to spawn on me. I dodge them, but now Darkrule uses Landslide, causing the spikes to immediately break. The ad spawns, can't be stunned, I for some reason feel the need to DPS the ad, everyone slowly dies and we have to try again. On our way back to Darkrule, the log pulls a pact we skipped earlier and we have to fight it. After that, we kill Darkrule without any problems whatsoever, gaining our first 119 score. But that's it for the first key. We didn't get any loot, and move on to the next. For the second key I got into an Underworld +7, and there's really not a lot to say about it. We had a red paladin in our group who was really overgeared, sitting at 420 item level, dealing by far the most damage. We easily free chested this dungeon, it wasn't even close. So rather than focusing on this one specifically, we'll talk about this range of keystones around 2 to 13, as this is one level before the third ethics. At this point, mechanics feel more like a minor inconvenience rather than an actual threat, and so most players are very much unaware of the mistakes they make, because more often than not the healer is able to out-heal the mechanics that are going off. Underworld in specific is a key that can be timed with 20 or more deaths, while also being probably the shortest key this season. This is good because A, whenever I rolled a bad key, I could just go and do someone else's Underworld and just reroll my own key, and B, farm quests efficiently and have a chance of looting the Bile-stained Quark tests, and I really made use of this. It also happens to be a key I really enjoy doing in BFA, and now I still really love it in Dragonflight. But other than that, let's just talk about things that stand out immediately when playing DH. One thing I noticed fairly early is that the rings are actually more useful than I thought. Whenever a mechanic throws you back, you can just open your rings and immediately avoid those mechanics. Now jumping is usually still the more safe way of doing this, as on Gutshot for example, you can end up flying into the traps by accident. But it's still really good in other fights like Eltaris and Vortex Pinnacle, where you can avoid the downbursts by double jumping and flying over them. Other than that, you're usually the first at the next pack. This is really good because you can pull multiple groups of trash before the DPS get to them, helping you with grouping, and you also avoid a lot of damage when pulling by just outranging packs before they can hit you. This is really good because you can pull multiple groups of trash before the DPS get to them. Infernal Strike is also really useful to outrange specific abilities, but I didn't really make much use of that early on in the series, so I can't give any examples for that right now. One downside this has though is when you're not making sure that the path you're taking when jumping is clear, you can actually trigger traps that are placed in it. One good example that happened to me early on was getting hit by the vermin trap as were traps. The next thing I want to talk about is utility. Now as a Death Knight I use my grips way more often than people would think. In packs you have a lot of deaths to stupid mechanics like Rotten Bile and Underworld, that's the frontal that the maggots do, and decays are able to stop almost all of them by themselves, which brings a lot of consistency to ones, and I kind of missed that with the DH. Now don't get me wrong, they do have a good amount of utility, it's just that as it stands in Season 2, we don't bring a lot of it, and what we do have feels like it's less useful in packs than coordinated groups, where people are less likely to overlap stops or to use their kicks when you're using your silence sigil. On some mobs you also need to time the silence sigil, because some enemies can't be silenced and so it can only kick their current casts, and I miss that timing more times than I'd like to admit. Chaos Nova is really amazing though. It almost feels like a minor defensive, giving me time to build up my layers of mitigation before taking more damage. And it also gives me an opportunity to generate threat, especially when someone already has aggro. But that's pretty much all I want to point out this early into the series. After we free chested this key, I asked the group if they wanted to do the Nelfaris 10 that the lead got, and everyone stayed, which brings us to the next key. Now this Nelfaris key went just as well as the Underworld did, with us missing the free chest by only about 58 seconds with only 2 deaths. At this point we're just grinding out low keys to farm equipment, quests and to fill a vault. While we will be seeing some minor hiccups in almost every key, timed low keys aren't particularly interesting. There are rarely any consequences for bad plays, and as the tank, I have a lot of control over how the keys go. This is unfortunately also a little annoying, because almost all the routes and pulls I do are strategies you'd be able to pull on a plus 20, but when you pull all the trash in Nelfaris and expect your team to use the chains to kill them, you'll realize a lot of players don't even know the chains are a thing, leading to some awkward situations. I had to look up pack-friendly routes as a consequence of that, and really started to avoid mechanic-based dungeons like Nelfaris because of it, which basically means you're trying to keep as much power over the key to yourself as you can to ensure success and to not waste time, as the alternative is to only play keys like Underrot. In this Nelfaris, I was extremely lucky to have a group of players using the chains. I'm only mentioning this now because I have way more keys to go over in the next video. The Nelfaris I'm talking about specifically was a key from that next week, and I unfortunately forgot to record the first couple minutes, meaning I don't have any footage of the situation I'm talking about. Either way, we end up looting a champion quality chest piece, which is a big upgrade to a veteran quality chest piece. The group disbands and we tier the chest piece. This late in the season, we are practically sitting on a pile of tier tokens, meaning we can tier all the pieces we want as long as we make sure to keep at least 4 tokens for the hero quality gear later on. For our 4th key we're finding ourselves in an Alderman 13. I'm doing the second boss first, because in a tyrannical week you would much rather lost Bromag than the drafts. Now this is where I'm doing something really stupid. For those of you who don't know, the Berserker before the boss enrages at 40% health, increasing the damage they and all their allies around them deal and take by 20%. This means that if you pull them together with Bromag, they will buff him, causing him to take 20% more damage. Now I'm used to pulling them together with Bromag and thought this was a common thing to do, but what I didn't think of is that the DPS are most likely not aware of this strategy and therefore aren't expecting me to pull them into the boss. Long story short, I lose aggro just as I move on to pulling Bromag, causing the healer as well as a hunter to die, forcing me to reset the boss. We regroup and take out the trash, then kill the boss by himself. It is absolutely possible to do this strategy in a pack group, but sometimes you just have to communicate, otherwise mistakes are bound to happen, and as the tank, this would have been my job. Moving on, we didn't have any problems aside from a couple of random deaths. Amberon is a boss that on paper seems really simple. The tank aims the frontal array from the group, the heal dispels the burning heat debuffs, and everyone has to avoid the seeking flames. During the activate keepers phase, if you're unsure if you can self-sustain throughout the phase, you make sure to be in the same half the heal is in and kill the 4 keepers. Unfortunately, we have 2 deaths to the seeking flames shortly after the fight begins, and user only battle rests on the heal, leaving us with only 1.5 DPS. The evoker seems to then die to the purging flames, leaving us with only the boomkin to finish the fight. On our way to the last boss, we have a couple more small deaths, but then kill Deos with no more problems. While we didn't get any loot ourselves, the monk didn't need the belt he got and gave it to us, boosting our item level up to a total of 403. This would unfortunately be the end of our little series of timed keys, as the next 3 keys would turn out to end in disbands. The first of them was a Halls of Infusion 14. We picked up a couple of deaths on our way to the first boss and then lost a shaman during the first boss fight because our heal dispelled the Death Knight right at the boss. Our log picks up the shaman for the priest to dispel both of the next debuffs using Master Spell, causing all 3 DPS to die. At this point, we managed to work our way up all the way to plus 14. And people still don't even know the most simple boss mechanics. I personally make sure to watch boss guides before every season. I'm very lazy myself and I even pick the shortest guides too. I understand people just want to pick up the game and have fun, but spending 10 minutes before the dungeon you're going to spend hours in throughout the season to catch up on some boss mechanics is, in my opinion, not asking a lot. On the second boss we then have all 3 DPS slowly withering away to the frogs and reset the boss. I explain the mechanics to them and they nail it the next attempt. Then on the third boss we lose 1 DPS cause he hid behind a broken ice boulder, then the other 2 to a glacial surge causing us to wipe. In the second attempt I am unable to move the boss to the next ice boulder, causing people to not make it to the boulder in time, losing 2 more players. At this point our healer has had enough and leaves the group, wasting around 30 minutes of everyone's time. The next key would luckily be over way earlier than that, wasting only a total of 15 minutes of our time. The dungeon went really well and we managed to kill the first boss with a total of 0 deaths. We cross the bridge and pull a couple of mobs. Almost at the end of the pull, our heal gets directly hit by a rat trap, then runs into the next trap immediately after. Now I'm unsure whether they rage quit or had other problems, but they wouldn't come back. We decided to clear some more trash without the healer, all the way up to the Ring of Booty, then decided to disband. As for the third disband, we're managing to make it all the way to the second and by far hardest boss of Vortex Pinnacle. All of our team gets hit by the downburst, slowly killing the group. I try to reset the boss, but sadly don't survive outside the arena for very long and we have to try again. On a second attempt we lose 2 players to breath. The breath is directed at a random player, giving everyone 3 seconds to leave the cone. Our druid however seems to believe this to be a tank frontal. That was it for this dungeon however, as everyone starts leaving the group. After this I finally got into a group that would manage to make it through a key without disbanding, Brackenheight in this case. We managed to get all 5 cages without losing anyone in the process and start the first boss fight. We managed to kill Trick Totem before she deploys a totem. I still get blinded, but our priest doesn't know he needs to dispel it, but luckily our mage is geared enough to survive the charge. We go on, but I pay no mind to our healer's mana and end up pulling more than we can handle, causing a wipe. After that, we blasted through the dungeon to chesting the key. Next I joined an Underrod +9, but this key wouldn't go anywhere. We had 5 deaths in the first trash bag, then rived the first boss twice in a row, resulting in a disband. For our last key I went into an Underrod again, this time only +7 though. This one was riddled with mistakes that went unpunished because of the low difficulty, but we still had 1 death on Sporecaller. Our DPS don't destroy the spores, making a lot of them blow up when the boss casts Festering Harvest. I try to save the day and eat as many shrooms as I can, needing a total of 5 before the explosion, making it up all the way to 11 stacks. I save myself using Fell Devastation, but sadly our shaman dies. He uses Reincarn and we free chest the dungeon with no more deaths. Now that concludes the first week of keys. I did all of them in 1 day actually, as I started this challenge 1 day before reset and this is how far I got. Unfortunately I forgot to record the vault. Now I don't remember what I got out of it. I checked for changes in gear between my 10th and 11th run on Raid.io, but nothing seems to have changed, so all I know, I didn't get anything at all. That leaves us at 723 score with an item level of 405. At this point score doesn't really matter to me. We're looking to gear up as fast as we can, and jumping from 397 to 405 after 6 keys isn't quite where we need to be, but it's a step in the right direction. Now, I'm not quite sure how long the series is going to be. I got everything recorded already, but it's just a lot of keys. I kind of want this to be a total of 4 episodes, but I'm not sure if that is forcing too many keys into one video. I expected this video to be roughly 25 minutes long. I didn't even make it halfway there. I'm not great at putting my thoughts into words, and to be honest, I just sat down, played hours of keys for 9 days straight. I didn't really think much about what's supposed to come after, and now I kind of scripted all of this, and it took me way longer than it should have. I'm a very big overthinker, and I always just look back at what I did, and I'm just thinking it's not the video that I wanted to create, but I'm pretty much just rambling at this point. If you have any feedback, feel free to let me know in the comments. My vacation ends on Monday and I'll have to get back to my full-time job. I'm not quite sure when the next episode of this will be ready, but I'll get there eventually, I promise. I'd appreciate if you like the video and maybe follow the channel, and that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.